welcome to Real Estate Investor Talk. I'm Neil Peterson, founder of Real Estate Investor, rei.co.za, and today we have the pleasure of speaking with Wesley Roos. He's the founder of Proply. It's a dynamic prop tech startup revolutionizing the real estate investment landscape, particularly in the realm of short-term rentals. Wesley, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure, Neil. Thank you for having me.
No, great. So, Wesley, before we delve into Proply and its innovative solutions, could you share a little bit more about your background and what led you to embark on your journey, specifically in the real estate industry?
Yeah, perfect. My journey starts all the way back in, 2009, when I started in a BSc in property studies and finance, or property finance and investments at the University of Wits, the Waterfront. Ended up doing my honors there, and yeah, then immediately left there and started working at Investec, and very quickly realized that corporate life is not for me. And so I took a very bold plunge and decided to pack my car as full as I could get it and move to Cape Town, and I joined a startup. And I've basically been in the tech startup world for pretty much the last decade, building tech companies. And then with reference to property, bringing it back to where we are now, myself and a few business partners decided to start a property portfolio, a couple of years back. And we didn't have, being young, sort of ambitious guys, we didn't really have huge amounts of cash flow available. And so we had to solve property investments with numbers rather than money. So I had to really, dig back into what I'd studied, and obviously developed a whole lot more in terms of the models. But basically, ended up solving a problem for myself first as to how do we scale a property portfolio with the with the least amount of capital and the least amount of risk. And that's essentially led us to where we are today. I had over the last sort of year and a half, I've had so many people asking me for help time and time again on, how do they invest in property, and obviously we chose to go the short-term rental route, obviously listing everything on Airbnb. And after a while, I just kind of had enough of friends asking me for advice on buying Airbnb properties, and so I was just like, you know what, I'm just going to turn this into a business. Had all the models, had all the IP, and so decided to formalize the business, and yeah, we are today.
Awesome. I mean, well, welcome to the world of entrepreneurship, because I think, that's what normally happens. Ideas come from these weird and wonderful things called demand. And so maybe let's just talk a little bit about, what sets Proply apart from other tools in the market, because there are a few other products, but not necessarily, I think, in your sector.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's what I was just going to say. What sets us apart, quite simply, is that there isn't anything else that does this in the market. There are overlapping offerings from other companies, but for the most part, they do things. They do very sort of baseline data and baseline analysis. For example, ADNA works out a very basic cap rate calculation, right? And they only take in maybe like 2 to 3 data points that they work on that calculation off of. And then you get other, you get Property 24, and you get all those area reports and the sales reports and all of that. But even that is all just sort of statistical, historical sales data, and it uses sort of municipal valuations and valuations based on what properties have sold for, which doesn't necessarily mean that the property is then valued correctly, because it might just be getting inflated by the market because of the fact that someone is willing to pay for something that someone else is willing to sell it at. That's really what defines it. But then what our models go and do is we go and actually deeply or comprehensively work out, what is the income generating potential of a particular property. We sort of overlay that with the existing, all of that other, your sort of CMA info, your Property 24 sales data, your ADNA data. We kind of overlay all of that. And then we come out with a very comprehensive analysis of what the property, how it can perform, and essentially then what the feasible offer is that you should that you would be able to make this investment work for you. And just on that, like, it's different for everyone. Like, every investor has a different sort of mandate that they're looking to achieve. And so some investors might simply just be willing to pay more for a property based on their specific requirements. So to go back and answer your question, excuse me, there actually isn't very much us out there that does what we do.
Wonderful. So just go a little bit more in depth in terms of data and analytics. I mean, how does Proply empower investors to make like well-informed decisions? I mean, particularly in the context of, an evolving real estate market.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question, Neil. So the metrics that we, excuse me, the metrics that we measure or that we calculate are things like yield, cap rate, cash on cash return, annualized cash flow, annualized return. That's taking into account things like appreciation, or your return on investment with appreciation and without appreciation, obviously, because appreciation is very much cyclical. So you can't work out appreciation over like sort of a 1 to 5 year basis. It's got to be sort of longer than that. And we then go and look at all of the comparative sales data in the area, and we'll look at all the comparative sales in a particular building. If you're buying an apartment in a specific building, then we'll look at the rate per square meter of buildings of apartments bought in that building, and we'll then compare that to the particular property under interest from that investor. So then we start taking into account all of these different data points. There's probably 25 different data points that we take in, and then there's about I want to say about 12 to 15 different investment metrics that we output. And it's just very, very empowering data to allow a user to make a decision, to compare properties side by side. Maybe you've shortlisted your properties down to sort of 3 or 4 or 5 properties that you can't decide between, and you just want to see them side by side, and you want to see what the yield is of property 1 versus property 2. So it's just very, very empowering data, and then it allows the user the investor to go in and say to the agent, right, this is the offer I'm willing to make, and this is I'm not willing to go higher than that because this is what it's based on. This is the data that it's based on. So it's significantly improving buyer confidence, and it's reducing the decision-making time for buyers based on the fact that they have access to these data-driven insights. And just one other note on that is that we've actually had some interest recently where the banks are asking for more info about how to finance a short-term rental property. Clients are coming to them wanting to get finance approved specifically for short-term rentals. And there's very little data out there to go and get this. So our reports just really, put together a lovely little, it's a beautiful report with a ribbon on it, and you can take that to the bank and you can say, this is all the data, please approve my finance.
Wonderful. So maybe just share some insights. You mentioned the banks, there's a lot of interest there, but how about real estate professionals and investors? How have they responded to Proply software so far?
So investors has been a fantastic uptake. So we have 2 models. We have a B2C model and a B2B model. B2C is referring specifically to investors. That is clients wanting to buy property to either enter the property market or scale their existing portfolios and do so in the most efficient way. So we've had fantastic growth. We've brought on a number of clients in the last sort of 6 weeks on that. And the word of mouth has actually been the most successful sort of way we've scaled those users. And I guess that is just testament to the fact that it's a fantastic value offering, right? It's a good value proposition, like when your clients are referring more clients. So there's been a fantastic response from investors. Then on the B2C side, the B2B side, the business to business, our target market there is other real estate professionals, particularly real estate agencies. There's been a great response from real estate agencies. However, the problem we're now trying to solve is actually getting the individual agents to use the product. So we've sold a couple software licenses to the agencies themselves, to the principal of the agency. However, obviously we're still busy. We're a startup. We're still busy scaling this out and figuring out how to onboard these users properly. Our biggest problem now that we're busy solving is how do we actually get the agent that works under the agency to now use the product, even though it's already paid for. So that's one of the problems we're trying to solve there. But there's massive interest. I mean, everyone we speak to, it's an absolute no-brainer. The value proposition is very, very clear. From an investor's perspective, we're ultimately saving you on average a couple $100,000 on each property purchase. So like you're reducing buying times, you're reducing decision-making times, you're increasing confidence. And then on the agent side, on the property professional side, real estate professional side, we're essentially just giving them the data to be transparent with their clients. Again, reducing decision-making time, increasing buyer confidence, increasing confidence of their clients. And ultimately, we believe that the software is going to actually help agencies close more deals, even if they ultimately end up driving down the sales price, because of the fact that the data is so transparent and so empowering. It does have a tendency to drive that price down. We believe that if you have all the data, you're going to do more sales, and therefore it becomes a volume game over a margin game, over just trying to make a bigger commission on the sale. So that's kind of the angle we're taking over there.
Wonderful. I think anything that you can, improve the ROI for an investor, and I think certainly any way that you can aid the agent, I think is definitely helpful. And
Yeah.
you're definitely filling a niche. So let's talk a little bit about the market. Cape Town has emerged as a hotspot for short-term Airbnb
Absolutely.
investment. Now, obviously it's got a unique sort of appeal, tourism demand, and obviously people wanting that kind of bespoke kind of accommodation. So given this, I mean, what potential returns can investors expect with the assistance of Proply's innovative tools?
Sure. Look, it's very specific to a client's, an investor's specific mandate. So we have a number of clients that will say, right, I want to invest in a property, but I want to be able to live there for 2 or 3 months of the year. And I want to be able to, come down and basically spend a month or 2 months or 3 months. And so if you're now sort of mixing a sentimental sort of emotional reason for your purchase with a financial and investment, wanting to maximize your investment, those two things sort of contradict each other. So you kind of need to pick one in order to have the most effective returns. But I guess that's a long way of saying, if you want to absolutely maximize your investment, and it's all about maximizing investment, you're not planning on staying there, you're running this as a proper investment, those returns can go, they can be very, very good. They can, I think one of the most recent reports I ran for a client who's just closed on a property, they were looking at about a 25% ROI in year one, 25% with capital appreciation. I don't want to speak out of turn without capital appreciation. I can't actually remember what that number is. But ROI, as you know, Neil, is not necessarily the name of the game in property. I think the name of the game is really yield, gross and net yield. And so what we're seeing, at least with the Cape Town market as it is, we're seeing yields of, in fact, for us personally, for our personal property portfolio, we don't actually look at anything under 15% yield for residential, under 15% gross. And we always try and get at least a net positive net yield. So anything that must be positive cash flow with after all financing, and we finance quite aggressively on our properties because of the fact that we're very hands on. We know how to manage them. We know how to like actually completely optimize those properties. So essentially, you can see in the Cape Town market as is. On average, I'd say you could probably get around a 12 to 15% yield without looking that hard. If you really want to spend a bit of time and you want to actually utilize a service like us to go and find those properties, you can start pushing above 15% yield, up to sort of an 18, 20, even like a 22, 23% yield. But again, all dependent on your financing and what your investment mandate is.
Exactly. I think thanks for clarification of the yield, because it's a very different approach if you're going for a longer term investment. So thank you for clarifying that. I think
absolutely.
For Airbnb, because yields are, I mean, incredible yields, which you're going to struggle to find with other normal buy-to-let type properties and that kind
absolutely,
of thing.
Yeah.
So Wesley, just looking ahead, I mean, how do you envision Proply sort of evolving to meet the needs and demands of investors and obviously professionals in the future?
Sure, Neil. How much time have we got?
You give us the shorter version.
Okay, so we've got very big plans for Proply. We understand that sort of in this day and age, data is the name of the game, and so we have a number of very cool solutions that are in the pipeline to start building out, which is all around data collection for us, and then mining that data. So at the moment, our analysis is pretty much all quantitative, but in time it will become more qualitative, and we'll actually start using things like AI, natural language processing, large language models, that's a tongue twister, to actually process the qualitative side of this data to then apply a qualitative and sentimental layer on top of the quantitative analysis. And what that then does, based on various inputs or data inputs or data sources, we can then essentially start predicting the movements of yield or just any particular yield in a particular area, but not based on quantitative. It's now based on the qualitative side of things. So for example, let's say the waterfront down here in Cape Town announces that they are going to be doing some kind of development in Woodstock, or in conjunction with the biscuit mill or something like that. Our models will then go and process that information, sort of cross-reference it with other sources, and factor that into an analysis to then say, right, we're actually on purely a quantitative analysis, the yield on that particular property is 15%. But now if you add the qualitative analysis in there, it's actually we predict that it's actually going to be about 18 or 20%. So that's basically the one component. Proply is going to become a big data player, and be able to process and mine that data. And then you sort of further to that, we'll look at, because we have all the data around the income performance or the performance of any particular property that is run through our system. We'll also then start capturing individual investors' financial sort of information or I guess affordability information as they are comfortable to provide that. And from there, we then start moving into the idea is to start moving into loan origination as well. So we actually then take that full-on profile with the performance reports, the property reports, and we just take that straight to the bank on behalf of the user. So there's that's sort of in the pipeline as well. And there's one or two other things that I don't want to give away too early, but it's very exciting. The vision is very, very big, and yeah, we're excited about it.
Wonderful, great. Well, we look forward to seeing Proply develop. So Wesley, finally, I mean, what advice would you offer to aspiring real estate investors and who are considering leveraging Proply software, certainly to enhance their strategies?
So I think a few things. I mean, a few people have said initially when they hear our fee, because our revenue model on the B2C side is that we take a 1% of purchase price, or 1% of accepted offer, generally speaking. And many young aspiring investors who are looking to access the market, to them, they see this 1% and they work it out as part of the total purchase price, and they say, look, I can't afford that. Like, I'm not, or that's not something. Getting into property is already a tough thing to do. I'm not sure I want to do that. But if once they actually dig in a little bit more and they see, right, but we're actually saving you 200,000 to 300,000 rand, or X amount of rand based on having this data, my advice would be to those people is spend money to save money, right? So spend a little bit of money now with us, increase your confidence, make sure you've got all the numbers, empower yourself so that you actually end up saving, firstly on the purchase price in the short term, but in the long run, you're actually saving, because you're actually saving yourself from a bad investment, which I can tell you now is going to be a lot more expensive than any fee we might charge upfront. There's nothing worse than getting a bad property investment. You're just going to spend a lot of time in the market writing that out.
Absolutely.
And then I would say the second thing is, we spent a lot of time when we entered the property markets and just got on that first rung of the property ladder. We spent a lot of time analyzing properties, and we actually got to the point where it was just analysis paralysis. And I wish there was a tool back then like Black Property provides now, because that would have just allowed me to pull the trigger. It would have certainly helped. It would have certainly allowed me to just jump. And so that's the second thing that I would say is, even if you don't end up using Proply, if an investor doesn't end up using Proply, do your research and do your due diligence on property, on any particular property. Run your numbers as best you can, but then actually at some point just jump in with both feet and do the deal, or get on the property ladder, because that is your hardest. Your hardest property is your first property. And once you've done that, then you sort of, it opens up a realm of possibility on how you can get more. So with or without us, do your research, but don't wait too long. Jump in and just get involved.
Awesome. So Wesley, just in closing, and it's going to be quite a big job to get a lot of investors off Excel.
Yep.
It's not, it's unbelievable. So many investors are still using Excel, and to good effect. And so maybe just in that context, and obviously just in your closing thoughts, how do you see Proply contributing to the overall growth and success of the real estate industry in the years to come? Certainly you want them to embrace the software. So maybe just some wise words in terms of that, and your final thoughts on that.
Well, firstly, Neil, I just want to say good luck getting me off of Excel. I run everything on Excel or Google Sheets, and I'm an absolute spreadsheet nerd. I love it, and no matter what fancy tech we go and build, I will always still be using spreadsheets. But they are limited. They definitely do have their limitations. For example, it's very difficult to start providing real-time data, inputting into those spreadsheets on an ongoing basis. There are ways to do it, but then your models start to become clunky, and their tendency to break, or the chances of them breaking and your model then becoming inaccurate or just simply not working increases significantly. So with that sort of precursor, I would say that the idea or the reason to actually adopt something like Proply is due to the robustness, right? Like, you don't need to go and do it all yourself. Like, we do it all for you. We go and completely run these numbers for you. It's meant to be like our slogan. We have a few slogans actually, but one of them is just real estate investment made easy. Like, it really is that easy. So, and certainly once we start pulling in all of the other functions within the supply chain, within the property buying cycle, once we start pulling those more into our realm or under our vertical, there is no reason to leave. There would be no reason to leave that. And I'm reluctant to say this live, but we do have a plan to ultimately actually make the service completely free to the end user.
Wow.
So we then have other ways to then monetize that data down the line, or to monetize that process. And obviously we need to do good business, and we need to be a profitable business in order to scale. But if for no other reason, in time, if this is a free service for you, why would you not use it? But I'm reluctant to say that, because I don't know when we're going to be able to do that. But that is the plan.
Wonderful. Well, Wesley Roos, founder of Proply, I think really your expertise and passion for innovation in the real estate sector are truly inspiring. We need more of you. And on behalf of rei.co.za, Real Estate Investor, and our viewers, we extend our gratitude for your time and obviously for your valuable insights. And until next time, this is Neil Peterson of rei.co.za signing off. Thank you again.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks a lot, Neil. Cheers.
Good. Thanks.